for joining us this Saturday evening for a discussion on encouraging mutualism among the young and the elderly, addressing stigmas. I'm Kitara Aravindan, your moderator for today, and I will also be sharing some perspectives, especially the younger adult perspectives. But before we proceed, here is a little video on what we do at Act for Health.
Our mission is to provide a highly conducive venue for clinical research on aging and commercialization of research output. Other than that, we also want to deliver evidence-based tests and therapy to help our older clients strive towards healthy aging. We also want to deliver interdisciplinary training to ensure skills empowerment among alike health professionals, postgraduates, and public. Last but not least, we also want to raise public health awareness on aging population issues.
At Act for Health Services and Consultancy, we conduct various physical tests to determine mobility, strength, and balance among the elderly. The clinical setting of the center not only ensures safe and conducive administering of assessments, but also offers you all the facilities you will require. Our tests have been derived based on research conducted by our very own experts and have been shown to be highly efficient among older adults in Malaysia.
Do check our services and book an appointment for your lovely ones. Ultimately, you will play a large role in ensuring the best for our elders.
Okay, so that is a little bit of what we do at Act for Health. Feel free to visit our center.
Our
It's
mission is to
located
provide
oops, sorry. Yeah. So feel free to visit our center anytime. It's located in section 19 in PJ. You can just Google Act for Health and the location will turn up. Okay. So, okay. Today I will be your moderator and just a quick introduction about myself. I'm actually a PhD student at University of Malaya under the supervision of Prof. Tan Mopin herself. And I'm also the operations coordinator at Act for Health Sendirian Berhad. Okay, so the aim of today's discussion is to tackle topics many of us, especially within the Southeast Asian community, find difficult to speak about. We all have an opinion, a story, or an experience to share, especially relevant to topics pertaining to older adults, where especially ones on senior care homes, financial responsibility, mental health, end of life care, and familial responsibility. But for one reason or another, tend to, or is forced to remain silent. So today we want to generate healthy discussions and hear all perspectives so that we can hopefully initiate healthy, productive, and open communication in each and every one of our homes, which will not only reduce repressed emotions, but also improve relationships and reduce stigmas. So today we are graced with the presence of three esteemed panel speakers. Firstly, we have Ms. Judith Ann Lee. Ms. Judith today will be sharing her perspective on the caregiver side. So for your information, Ms. Judith is the Senior Program Manager with Blue Track Center, and she manages events for leading global organizations in technology, manufacturing, and the entertainment industry in Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Ms. Judith has a father aged 78 years old that had just started peritoneal dialysis in December 2021. In fact, she just finished sorting out her responsibility actually. So thank you so much, Miss Judith, for your trouble, really. She assists him to do daily sessions, and she has been the main caregiver for him since he needs assistance with daily needs like bathing, dressing, and some assistance in walking with a cane. He also has some cognitive issues in remembering and doing daily tasks. This has become more apparent since 2020. So we are really happy to have Ms. Judith here with us and uh, hopefully gain some very useful insights from her based on a caregiver's perspective. Next up, we have Madam Lily Fu. So Madam Lily, we are very lucky to have Madam Lily with us because she's the founders of Seniors Aloud, an online community of seniors set up to promote active, healthy aging and lifelong learning. Madam Lily also holds a Masters of Science in Applied Gerontology from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and a Masters in Teaching English from UM. Madam Lily is also the Vice President of University of the Third Age, KL and Selangor, and is the first editor of the Senior magazine and a contributing writer. She's a strong advocate for the rights of older person and recently turned filmmaker in 2020 when she won a film grant to produce Meniti Senja, The Twilight Years, a documentary about the residents of a Muslim aged care home. So Madam Lily will be sharing the older person's perspectives, and she definitely has a lot to share given the vast experience she, as you can observe yourself. Next up, we have Prof. Tan Mopin herself. So Prof. Tan Mopin is a geriatrician from the University of Malaya. She's the principal investigator of the Transforming Cognitive Frailty into Later Life Sufficiency program, which is funded by the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia's long-term research grant. Prof. Tan is also the Honorary Secretary of the Malaysian Society of Geriatric Medicine and the College of Physicians of Malaysia. She is also an academic editor to a few scientific journals, including PLOS ONE, and associate editor in the Frontiers in Medicine journal. In addition, she is also the managing director and the founder of Act for Health Sendirian Berhad, as well as the medical director of the Genting Dementia Day Care Center and Aged Care Services Sendirian Berhad. Okay, so I'm sure everyone is really excited to hear perspectives from these three very highly knowledgeable individuals. So before we proceed further, I would just like to have a quick photo taking session because if we do it towards the end, then everyone tends to leave. So we want to do it now so that everyone is still here while everyone is still here. Okay, so Vimalan, we'll need you to help coordinate. We have Vimalan from our Act for Health Center, who's also our technical assistant for today. Okay.
Yeah, sure. I will count 1, 2, 3, and then you're just gonna take the photo.
Okay, so I would appreciate if everyone could just switch on their cameras. We want to see your faces. That's nice. Okay, just give it a few minutes. Let everyone just switch on the camera and settle down. Okay.
I'm sorry, my camera is on, but I don't see picture.
Oh, okay, no problem. We can hear you though, so no worries.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, it looks like I also can't turn on my camera. I do not know.
don't worry, we're not forcing it. It'd be nicer if we could see your face, but if you don't want to, it's fine. Don't worry.
I don't have problem with Zoom, but this is the first time using Google Meet.
Yeah, I also first time Google.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I think it has something to do with allowing permission to use the camera.
Yeah, I did. They did ask the question, and I say yes. But
Okay. Another thing that can be done is you can leave and then rejoin again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are we done?
No, we're not.
No, you have to hold a smile for so long.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Completely forgot that everyone is still smiling. Okay. So, Vimalin, are we ready?
Yeah. Okay, Ken. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's done.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for holding your smile for so long. Okay. For those who are having technical issues, in situations where your mic or your camera may not be functioning, if you look at the bottom, you'll see a few icons. So you know your camera is on when it's not red and there's a slash mark across. Okay, so the camera icon is a little video cam icon. Okay, and the mic, your microphone icon is the one that's the first icon, the one the microphone looking one. So it shouldn't be red and there shouldn't be a slash across.
Mine both also don't
If you
have
still have
slash.
problems, okay, then
Mine
maybe you
both
could
also
leave and then return back again. Maybe it will help.
Okay. Until I cannot come
Okay,
back.
yeah.
No, better
Oh,
don't.
no.
I think many of us are not quite used to Google Meet. No? We are
Google
more used to
yeah.
Zoom.
I better
Okay,
don't.
okay.
I better don't leave after I don't know how to come back.
No, but I've used Google Meet before, and also was working. I do not know this time why it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people tend to complain about this for Google Meets actually. So maybe what we usually advise them is ask them to leave and then return back again. Usually it works. Okay. Okay, so without further ado, we will proceed with the session. We're still waiting for Prof. Tan, but no worries, we can proceed first. Oh, okay, I just got news that Prof. Tan is joining, so no problem, we can still go ahead. Okay, so we will do this topic by topic. So as you all may already be aware, we are tackling about 5 topics today. So we'll begin with senior care homes. Okay, so we'll begin with senior care homes and then we will proceed, we will hear a few Q&A and we'll hear some perspectives on that area. And then we move to financial burden. Same thing applies, we will hear perspectives from all of our speakers, and then for each topic, we will be tackling your individual questions within the topic itself. But no worries if you forgot and then you have another question later on, you suddenly remember. At the end, we also have a Q&A session. So we are trying to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, then we will be going into financial burden, and then we will go into familial responsibility, and then we proceed to mental health, and then end of life care. So these are all topics, sensitive and sort of stigmatizing topics among the elderly population, which we really hope to tackle after today's discussion. Okay, so first of all, let's begin with senior care homes. Okay, so I hope everyone is ready. Feel free to switch on your camera, switch off, it's up to you. Okay, but yeah. So I have personally had discussions with my friends or spoke to aunties and uncles who seem to have this perception that being placed in senior care homes means that the child is not willing to take care of them, or they feel like they are a burden to their children, which is why they're being placed into a senior care home. And personally, as a young adult, I would be worried about placing my parents in a senior care home because I do not want them feeling such a way. And I also will be afraid of what the society has to say about me. Okay, although I am aware that senior care homes are usually well equipped with all the care that the older person may truly need. So the first question is directed to Madam Lily. So Madam Lily, how would you feel about being placed in a senior care home and why?
Okay, first of all, I have to say that there are many categories, many different types of senior age care. So it depends on my condition, my health condition at that point of time. If I'm well, mobile, independent, I certainly would not want to be placed in an aged care home. Yes, I may opt for a senior retirement home, which is very different. Yes, that means I need minimal care if I'm placed in a retirement home as opposed to an aged care center. So even among aged care centers, there are also many, many different types, depending on budget. I think that's the most important, depending on budget. So there's always a home that fits the pocket of the person. But if you were to ask me personally, how would I feel if at some point of time I have to, be sent to or be admitted to an aged care home? I think even before that happened, I would encourage everyone, just like what I have done. I have discussed with my two daughters about my plans at such a time. I'm already 74, so it's not that far away, although I hope to live up to 100, yes, but there will come a time definitely when I may not be able to do a lot of things on my own, and then I will have to consider moving into an aged care center. However, a lot of people see, when you ask them, they will say, oh, I prefer to age at home, age in place. But they don't realize that age in place comes with a lot of conditions. For example, nowadays, a lot of seniors are living on their own. So it is not advisable to age in place, even if you're mobile, because all it takes is just a fall. And Prof. Tan, I see you here. I'm sure you're very aware of it here because you're a fall expert, yes? All you take is just a fall, break a leg, or have a heart attack or a stroke, and you're alone. So that is not what I would think aging in place is for me, at least. Yes. So you have to think about all these factors before you decide, how do I feel if my children put me in a senior aged care home or retirement home? These are very important questions to examine. Yes.
Yeah, agree. Thank you so much, Madam Lily. So I guess that brings us to the next question, which is directed to Ms. Judith. How would you feel about placing your parent in a senior care home, and why?
Okay, thank you very much, Hidara. Can you hear me?
A bit
Can you hear?
muffled.
Oh, okay.
It's slightly muffled. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
yeah, much better.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for the question. As Lily has mentioned, yeah, these are there's considerations for placing like my dad for a senior care home. He is 78, going on 79 this year. And as you mentioned in my intro, that he needs assistance at this present moment. So, but for me, at this current stage, even though we've been needing the assistance and I'm still able to take care of him, um, placing him in a senior care home is not on my agenda at this present moment because he still is able to walk. It's just that he needs assistance with, the cane or a walker. I mean, only when, like for example, only uses it like when we go to the hospital because he has to walk a bit of a distance, Or I'll just take the wheelchair from the entrance of the hospital to take him to the clinic, so that it's like he doesn't have to walk much. Before this, he was fine. He could walk, and it was not a problem. But I guess after being on peritoneal dialysis and it has weakened probably his muscles in his legs, and he's not going out as much and doing exercise. So it all contributes to that. So I would just say that for now, I'm still able, though it's not always easy because my dad is the kind of person that will always question things, even from before when he was ill. And so, taking one day at a time and yeah, to do, whatever that is needed for him. For this present moment, I will not take him in a senior care because I'm still able and he doesn't need like major medical facilities or equipment, he doesn't need like oxygen or things like that at this present moment. He's still able to walk, he will come down the stairs, coming down, go out, take his newspaper, have his just sit in the porch, or look out in the balcony and watch people, things like that. He's just not as mobile as before, but he's still there, I would say, yeah. So at present moment, I wouldn't.
Okay. Sorry, Madam, Miss
Yeah.
Judith. We actually have comments saying that your voice not so clear.
Oh, okay. I think it could be my mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Kitara. Hi, sorry. I was in a morning, I was in a talk earlier, and it overran with a bunch of urologists trying to figure out how to manage continence in older people. Yeah. So so we actually overran, but I let it because it's not very common that we get a chance to do a workshop together with urologists, and it's a very important topic on continence. Yeah, but can I just interject about Judith's point? So Judith actually said that not at the moment because she can still manage. So why would she ever consider putting dad at a home? But it's not something that can be ruled out. Yeah, I think this kind of decisions is very personal, isn't it? So there are older people who will never want to go into care. And so we need to consider their choices. And there are others, like Lily said, you know, the last thing you want is to be on your own and be at risk of falls and there's no one to help you. So there are other people who prefer to have people around. So we always must also take into account the older person's personal choices. And often if they are still able to make decision, we should respect their decision. But of course, there are times when they are no, particularly when decision making is no longer possible and they're not aware that they're in danger and they need constant supervision, then you can't avoid having to actually consider placement in a care home. Preferably, it should always be, the decision should always be made by the older person himself or herself.
Yes, I agree with Hassan.
Okay,
Can you hear me better, Kitara? Sorry.
yes,
Can you
much
hear me better now? Okay.
Yeah, but just can't help to wonder though, what if the older person refuses, but we believe that it is given their situation after careful consideration and maybe after speaking to a few people about this, believe that the older person will do much better in a care home. So how do we tackle such a situation?
That situation actually occurs far more commonly than you think. And really, it's a very complex answer. And these kind of things, you have to get the social workers involved as an advocate for the older person. And then the geriatricians should actually also be involved, or the doctor caring for the older person need to have experience in dealing with this sort of things, because we don't take this sort of decisions lightly. And if there's any doubt, the older person should actually be assumed to be able to make that decision and be allowed to go home. Because changing place of residence is actually a very risky business. And overall, looking at the risk and benefits, it's worth trying to get them home to see whether they can manage or not. There's nothing wrong with a trial, you know. Often we're very risk averse. We think that care homes are safe places, but we try and make them as safe as possible, but there are still dangers in putting a group of older people together. There's a risk of infectious diseases. There's a loss of liberty. The risk of falls go up because of the change in environment, and the risk of and then it's also quite bad for them cognition, because of the change of environment, they can get very confused and they might not have the capacity to learn how to live in a new place, so the quality of life actually goes down. So on balance of probabilities, usually it is best to actually assume the older person is able to make that choice. But if really everybody is in agreement that they are unable to, then it is actually then it needs to be clearly documented that the patient can't make the decision, or the older person can't make the decision, and everybody agrees that it would be a safer place for them to go to a care home.
Kitara, can I just add in? I think I missed out something that I think my nervousness is a place. I just forgot to mention one thing, that the senior care home would be a last resort for me. Before that, it would be like if my dad were to be worsened, I would actually engage a nurse to be in the home. So it's his own home, his own bed, except that I would engage a nurse, a personal nurse, which, for example, like now my aunt has actually had a hip implant recently. So we engage a nurse to take care of her in the home, in her own home. So senior care would be the last resort. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, Madam Lily, you have anything
Yeah,
to add?
I would like to say that so much has changed since well, let's say about maybe 50 years ago, right? At those days, everybody lived under one roof. There was always somebody at home to look after the young ones and the older ones. But then over the years, you know what happens, right? And my batch, we are the baby boomers. We are the first wave of seniors who are professionals, educated, and we have different kind of viewpoints. We think of filial piety very differently. And the young people today also has different definitions of filial piety. Sending your parent to well, aged care center doesn't mean that they don't love you. Right? There are many, many things to consider, as you know, I'm sure all of you know that now, so don't have to go into it. So I think for my generation, the baby boomers, speaking on behalf of them, we have a lot of choices because we understand that our children may not be living with us, they may be overseas working elsewhere, right? So we have to fend for ourselves, and there are new ideas coming up, like friends getting together to share an apartment and helping to look after one another, sharing a maid, sharing, you know, everything. So that is also another option.
Yep, agree. So, yeah, I mean, we can from here we can sort of see different perspectives, like how senior care homes may not be a priority, but sometimes senior care homes are not the only options. There's so many other options that's available. So, with that, I want to direct this question to all three, maybe, about how is the reception of the current Asian household towards senior care homes? So can we start with
Very negative, I think it's very negative. And I always say, you know, I always hold the media responsible for playing a major role in this. You know, I mean, of course, I can understand also from a point of view. Whenever we see any headlines, it's always focusing on poor conditions in aged care home and all that, right? So it does give a very negative impression. And whenever they feature older people, it's usually frail, senile, and so forth. And then when I read reports, headline says, you know, the elderly rock or something like that. And then when I read the details, right, the elderly, it's like 61 years old. I mean, you know how we feel, right? Like I said, I got lots of friends who are 70s and they're very active. I would say highly active, some of them. And to call them elderly, I don't think. And I know that I've been given the task of representing the elderly because I'm supposed to be one of the elderly as well. So it's okay. But I mean, we have to change our perception of what, you know, the elderly, you know, represents.
correct. So, Miss Judith, would you want to add?
Yeah, I wouldn't call you Lily. I wouldn't call you elderly. You look very good for your age. Like these days, like as just adding on to the Lily's words, yeah. Like I go to the gym nearby in my neighborhood, and I am sometimes surprised because there's this group that goes in the morning, and they're all above, uh, I think 75, and they can do a good push-up, they can do a good plank longer and better than me. And sometimes I'll be like, if they can do it, I think I can do it. I'm much younger than them, but I have to push myself to do it, you know. So there's no way saying like elderly these days are like, oh, you know, like the old perspective of where they are like, you know, frail, you know, they need a kid, they need to be in the homes just because they can't do it. No, in fact, I have a 92-year-old aunt in Australia. She, because due to, I mean, the house was too big and everything, she moved into what do you call this, a retirement home, And from what I heard, she still goes and do her own shopping, you know, on the so-called shopping day, and she lives on her own because her children are in different states in Australia. But yeah, so you know, so being the perception is still, I mean, I think for Asians or even among my friends and family, that no, you don't send your parents or your relatives there. You know, it's better if you can still take care of them. But then again, like I have my two spinster aunts who live in the family home. There's two sisters and a brother. They're all above. The youngest is 71. The second, the other aunt is 81, and my uncle is 84, sorry. So they live in a family home. And unfortunately, recently they've been having some medical problems. Like my 81-year-old aunt started dialysis almost the same time as my dad. She was the caregiver to the younger one who had a stroke 2 years ago. And unfortunately, she just had a fall, and as I said, she just had a hip implant surgery. So that's why we had to engage a nurse to like take care of both. So, but it's still I think the perception that being at home is better, even though the younger aunt, there were times when it was becoming a bit too difficult for my elder aunt to take care. But then it also boils down to financial, because they all are not, they don't have pensions. They all work in the private sector, and so it all depends on your, whether they have insurance or their savings or their investments. So it all began like the siblings just help out each other. And then when it came out that to the family, so like for my cousins and all in our group and our overseas relatives, we pull together and say, hey, okay, if anybody, you are able to help out, let's pull together and engage, get aunt, a nurse. So this is the reason, and even before this. So I hope that helps a bit on my side. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms.
Thank
Judith.
you.
Prof. Tan, and
Yeah, I have to say that senior care homes, and I think Lily would agree with me, are the most misunderstood group of most misunderstood community there is in Malaysia. I mean, the problem lies in that the society treats them as outcasts, and a lot of them are treated as illegal entities who are actually overcharging, and are only and then anyone who sends to the care who sends a parent to a care home is perceived by society as non-filial, isn't it? So the whole problem lies with the society stigma. The truth is far from it. The truth is that I've actually got to know very many care home operators over the past 2 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They've had the most horrendous time. And I've managed to download the data from GitHub because it's not freely available. And I've estimated that COVID-19 has wiped out at least 1% of the care home residents in Malaysia. So this is very, very sad. And the problems with care homes isn't that they are bad places. The problems with care homes are society treat them badly. And I think that's a fundamental issue. So in order for care homes to be able to deliver the standard of care that older people deserve, the community should actually be supporting these setups, and we need government subsidy to actually really push up the quality of care in these places. Whoever owns a care home needs to be given a medal, and whoever works in those care homes are our true frontliners for the COVID-19 pandemic. I have nothing bad to say about them. They are a very, very special group of people.
agree. So speaking of how the community should actually do something about these, like as Prof. Tan mentioned just now, we have Andreen Chan who posted in our chat box mentioning that she always had this plan to gather or to form a community for the senior people, especially those who are single, whom spouses have passed on, and to build a community to live together, to look after each other, and to avoid depression from loneliness. So I guess these are the kind of efforts we are really looking forward to within the community, and to reduce stigma. So, Andreen Chan, would you like to elaborate further? If you're shy, it's okay. You can still use the chat box.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, hi. Because I'm not reaching to senior. I'm not qualified yet. Going another maybe a few more years to reach. But I do have a lot of friends talking about this, and some of them actually single. In fact, they started to think of this plan of why not Japan is having this kind of thing, and even in US, some time back I saw they actually form a community of single ladies, and they acquire a land pretty cheap, and then that was in US, and pretty cheap. Then they built like a small chalet, small quarter, and for each other, like one bedroom kind of thing for them to live together, and one common kitchen. And I have this friend, also a single lady. She keeps having this idea, and actually talking to me very often that she wants to buy a vacant land and to build, and call along some of her friends, and build a row of maybe a few single one bedroom, and then to live. So this idea I've been coming from many friends and many community talking about it, but so far no one actually taking the action. There are many reasons, I suppose, because financial issue and building and things like that. But there's one place my sister told me in Ipoh. I'm not sure anyone heard about it. Something green, something. She went over to see, and it's a very nice place according to her. But of course, those places you must have some financial status, yeah. So you need to actually lease a number of years. You have to like lease a number until the person pass on. Then you have to surrender back the unit, and the coordinator there, I don't know what you call it, then you will actually take back the unit, and then to lease out to another elderly or senior person. So that means to say that the unit will be continuously replaced by another person when the person pass on or leave, you see. So I find it's a very good idea. In fact, my sister went there to see the place, and nearly wanted to book one for herself, but we are actually from KL, but she's very keen. I haven't really take the action. So she told us that this is an idea we should actually implement more for Malaysian, especially in KL. We don't see it yet, and there are many well-to-do KL people, can afford such thing, and most of them are living alone. Honestly speaking, I went for a morning walk. I also heard many senior people, children are always left himself or herself alone, staying in a house or an apartment. And whenever he or she actually having some problem, not well and sick, he started to call around us. Okay, are you free actually to accompany to the hospital and things like that? So I find very very sad to see all these things going on, especially the children are now leaving the country, getting more and more, leaving the country and find a better living, condition or opportunity elsewhere. And most of the parents are actually left alone. And if the spouse leave, only leave themselves, and then they have to go through a lot of emotional issue. I heard a lot. So I feel very emotional when I hear this. Maybe my turn soon or so next time. So I think we have to do something about it now, rather than we have been talking about nursing home, which is not really welcome. We have seen so many already, and talking about. In fact, I find very strange. One thing I need to express it before I actually pass it back to you, is that I also notice I'm living in an apartment. Can you imagine? I live in an apartment with many blocks. I don't know this person, I don't know that person. But when I talk to them, oh, I'm actually a single, living alone in the apartment, but we don't know each other. Just don't talk about far away. In the same community apartment, there's no, I don't blame anybody. I'm just saying there's no coordinator in the apartment, or a group of people, gather all these people together to actually like meet up, once a week in the community center, in the apartment, to know each other, that actually you are single, I'm also single, you are living alone, I'm living alone, this kind of thing. But we don't know each other. This kind of thing I find again very sad thing, We actually more on our own self, more on own self. We go in and out. I don't see you. I mean, I don't know you, but I say hi, bye, this kind of thing. Or sometimes you don't even. Then later when you meet the person, oh, I'm actually alone, staying in the apartment, that kind of thing. So it's going on, especially in the city area. We are not as close as those kampong people. That's what a lot of things to look into. Many things. In fact, it's still lots of things to catching up. People, human beings are actually still I don't know what to say, they're still very much to themselves, maybe perhaps. Like unlike the kampong people, they are very close to each other, they know each other very well. But the city people are very actually close to themselves. So at this moment, I notice what's going on. I even have friends even to get the Japan company to actually come over to buy the land to build this kind of facilities for the quite well-to-do people. So I have lots of people talking about how successful it's going to be. I don't know, but the talking is going on for some time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Andreen. Anyone would like to comment on Ms. Andreen's?
May I just say something?
Andreen, a lot has been happening that you do not maybe not aware of. Yeah, what you have said, I've already mentioned earlier about seniors getting together to share accommodation, for example. And there are also plans where the residents themselves have got together. So and you mentioned Green Acres in Ipoh. Even 20 years ago, we already had a place in Cheras called Sri Surono. That's independent living as well. Yeah, so there are quite a lot of things going on, but maybe you're not aware of it. Maybe you can contact us at Seniors Aloud. I can update you.
Oh yeah. You do. Please, how to
Right.
contact any one of you, because I also need to discuss and share it to other friends.
The provision of information and where to access information.
Yes, because the information, yeah, you're right, accessible to everybody, because we talk about it, nobody can know where is where, you know. So I think it's a media or whatever announcement to the public is very important. Reaching out to the public, yeah. Can someone contact me? I can contact someone really seriously. Thanks a lot.
Sure, Ms. Andreen. Okay, so thank you so much for that. It's really, I mean, we can see that there is a lot of, I think the major issue here is the lack of information. A lot of people are not aware of the efforts. It more than the lack of efforts is the lack of information about these efforts. So I guess that's something we really need to look at, the media and individual responsibility as well. So there's also Ms. Sharifah has said that care for older adults, especially long-term care, whether in home or in care homes, is expensive, and the current economic situation and recent data on EPF savings are major concerns now in the future and for future for older adults. So Prof. Tan, we would like to know how how do we prepare for costings in senior care homes or like retirement villages and things like that? What as an older adult, as a younger adult for their parent and things like that, like what is the safe amount, or like I don't know, say percentage?
We should not look at cost. The problem is that people are expecting to be cared for in their old age. I think Lily will agree with me with that, right? Yeah, because you don't expect that you will ever have enough money if that is actually what you need, what you perceive to be true. So we do not want to repeat the mistakes of the West. So because we know that countries like the US took 70 years to actually go through the process of population aging, and some of the European countries like France took about over 100 years. So they had time to learn all these lessons, and they made a lot of mistakes. And one of the mistakes they made was to actually these concepts of institutionalizing older person. So they think that you put an older person, if they need care, you put them in a care home and you provide care. Institutional care is simply the most expensive form of care, and you can't guarantee quality either, because it needs a lot of human resources. And the problem with population aging is human resource becomes lower and lower. And then the all the safety features that have to be put in, all the also costs a lot of money. So we cannot afford to look after older people. That's the truth. Now that's shocking. So you better jolly well. So for all of us, our aim is not to invest and not to consider just money. Of course, some money would be good, and you should save as much as you possibly can without being good. But the idea is that the more important investment is actually what we believe to be healthy aging. So we need to think from the day we are able to make decisions from ourselves, that how we're going to actually preserve the body, so that it can be as independent for as long as possible. And it is possible. to actually live nearly all your life without needing care. And there are very clear examples in this world. You know, if you go to the island of Sardinia, or the island of or the Okinawa island, you will find that there are a lot of very independent, very old people walking around, and you know, we could learn from those communities as well. Yeah, so we need to change our concept of what it is to grow old. It's not about needing care. It's about how we preserve ourselves. And as a parent, the minute your child is born, you need to actually set a good example for them and already start thinking about healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, brain food from the minute you're born. You know, because the higher level you start, then you, even if you lose, you still don't lose. You don't get to that lower level. So I remember trying to stuff lots of mackerel in my son who didn't like it and stuff like that. So but eventually figured out he likes salmon. Yeah, and then I have to find cheap sources of salmon, you know. Yeah, so and those sort of things that we all have to consider. And the way we're heading at the moment in this country is scary. I have to say, it's very, very scary.
Hey, thank you, Prof. Tan. So, but I'm just wondering, like, what about those who are current older adults who are highly dependent and those who have very little resources, financial means? How about these people? Are there any assistance available, any kind of resources available for them to reach out to?
Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to have a system that picks up older people before they're about to deteriorate. That's what we need to do, to actually try and even if they have deteriorated, try our best to restore function. And so this is a losing battle because our system, our healthcare system at the moment, this is currently a losing battle because our healthcare system at the moment only emphasizes on treatment. It doesn't emphasize on maintenance of function or rehabilitation. Yeah, so we really, this is an urgent matter. Hairi Jamaluddin, don't just think that it's not your budget. Don't just think it's the Ministry of Women, Community and Family Development. You know how low that budget is, you know. It is your responsibility to make sure that the healthcare system actually, you know, private, public, NGO, hospital, I don't care. But if you are about to go to a hospital for an operation, there needs to be prehabilitation to optimize your chances of a good recovery. There needs to be rehabilitation, and that all needs to be costed in. It's not just about buying the operation itself.
Thank you so much, Prof. Tan. So, okay, moving on, I think Madam Sharifah has also said that care is mostly the responsibility of women, and there are many gender issues here. So, Madam Lily, what do you think?
Well, sad to say, usually the burden of care, being a caregiver, falls on the women, right? Whether you are the eldest daughter or you're the single daughter, you know, or you're without your children no children to look after. So the burden is on you. I shouldn't use the word burden because it should be shared. It should be shared by all in the family. When we talk about finances earlier, healthcare is very expensive. Aged care is very expensive. If you want to, if you expect certain level, right, of facilities and services and so forth. So if the family can get together and kind of pool together, then you can cover. For example, my mom was in aged care for quite some years, right, from advanced Alzheimer's. And I will share with you her bill. The monthly bill came to about 3,005 average over there. So not every family can afford that. It takes a lot. And the way I see it, because of the low fertility rate, in future, if you don't even have the numbers among the siblings to share out, because people are now having 1 or 2 children, right? So it becomes like the sandwich generation, yes, having to look after the bookend generations. The bookend are, the young, right? So now that is the situation, and it's not easy for those caught in the middle, the sandwich generation, those in their 40s, for example. And I've always been like, Prof. Tan will agree with me on this, right? We've always been advocating, start young, healthy aging, start young as possible. Never too late, never too early. Because if you look after your health, life is much easier for you later on. But the problem is all of us know what it takes to be healthy. All of us know it. It is the applying that many of us fail. Right? We know that sunshine is good for you, being active is good for you, but how many of us actually do that? So that is very sad. So, Prof. Tan, you can help us. You are a strong, the woman advocate in the MHAS, right?
Well, actually, it is possible to change the lifestyle of a whole country. You just need to believe. And it has been done. Been done in a lot of Scandinavian countries. So Denmark used to have the most horrendous cardiovascular profile. I'm sure Lily knows about this, right? Because they eat meat, they just eat a lot of meat. And Denmark is not like Finland where they have lots of fish and things like that. They actually just eat a lot of meat. And the other place is Austria, Germany. They have really bad cardiovascular profile. But what the government has done is to educate the public, develop policies. So they make sure that so if you go and eat fish and chips, I know a lot of people say yuck. If you go and eat fish and chips in Denmark, you get baked fish, you get poached fish, and you don't get chips. You get mashed potatoes or roasted potato or baked potatoes. And people will go, ugh, because we're so addicted to fried stuff, isn't it? But actually, when you taste it, it's jolly good. Why? Because they flavor it so nicely. And every single meal comes with salad. That's not that you don't grow salad in Denmark. It's not somewhere that has salad, but they have actually made it possible. They've grown the infrastructure to grow these sort of vegetables. Now, Malaysia is a beautiful country. I don't plant papaya. Papaya tree pops up because a bird plants it for me. And then I get plentiful. I don't even fertilize it, and the papaya is so yummy. So we have these things growing out of our ground without much effort. And yet we want to eat nasi lemak, roti canai, those sort of things. So 10 years is our aim. Within 10 years, we want the whole country's lifestyle to be turned around. We have no choice. We have to do it.
I guess it's important to have more discussions like this so that we get to educate people around us, because I think the lack of information is a major issue here. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we've discussed a lot about senior care homes, and we've also touched on some issues of costings, which we would like to elaborate further. So moving on to financial burden. So we would like to pose this question to the panel. From your perspective, who holds or should hold the financial responsibility in providing for the elderly? I mean, I know Prof. Tan mentioned just now that we should change that mentality of, trying to provide for the elderly, but instead try to inculcate this from young itself. That if you're not provided for, you take care and make sure that you better your health, basically. But then we do have families with this kind of issues and it's always a very sensitive topic of sometimes a issue for arguments of who holds the financial responsibility in providing for their parent or for seniors in that specific home. So Madam Lily, could you please let us know?
As I said earlier, it should be a shared responsibility, right? But again, that is ideal. Not every situation is ideal. There will be siblings who say, I can't afford it, I'm retired, right? I don't have any income. So why don't you do it, another sibling? Because you have the money, you have this and you blah, 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 So that's very difficult. Sometimes it ends up with very strained family relationships, So it's not an easy solution. That's why, I go back to, since we're all aware of it, and since you're young, Kitara, you're young, you can encourage all your, friends, right? Not only just to take care of your health when young, but also to save when you're young. Because ultimately, we all are responsible for ourselves. Do not put responsibility on your siblings, on the government, on anybody outside you. It is you yourself. Start early, be aware, be responsible. That's all I can say.
So it's all about independent living, whether it's financial, whether it's health, it's best to be independent, right? Okay, Miss Judith, would you like to share?
I agree that yeah, the responsibility by right should be on the individual. But like um like the situation now, for example, I've been not only caregiving for my dad, but helping out with my aunts. So among the cousins, so happened that I live nearby to them, and I would just like spread out into the cousins WhatsApp group, like, hey, we need help. So myself and my cousin who's in Kuantan, whenever he comes down, he will help out and assist our aunts with going to hospital. So in fact, actually, for the year before, I was actually assisting my aunts when they need to go to the hospital to PPUN, to go to the different clinics, up and down and up and down. Because at that time, my dad was fine, no problem. He didn't need assistance too much. He was just at home and we go to the hospital. That's normal. Yeah. So I used to go and then I was like, okay, I'll be gone in the morning, Dad. Breakfast is done. Everything. I'll be see you in maybe 11 or 12. After I'm done, depending on when I get to see the doctor in the government hospitals. Yeah. So it's like, how do we address, like, unfortunately, like the seniors now, they really, like, example, these two aunts of mine, they're not married, right? Fortunately, they were private sectors. I know one aunt has savings, and she's actually assisting the younger sister, in financially. And sometimes it's very sad when I go there and I can't. I mean, I can't really help provide for them. So I only do like what I can in helping to take them for their medical checkups, or making sure getting them maybe some supplements or things like that. I wish I could do more. I wish I could do more, but at the present moment, I had to stop myself from taking them to hospital and all, because I had to be doing for my dad, assisting my dad in his peritoneal dialysis sessions. So I had to reach out to my cousins, our cousins group, and say, hey, I'm so sorry, but if anybody could help, do these runs with the aunts, when they go to hospital, especially when it's the two of them who have the appointments at the same day, then, please reach out, or help us, to take it off. Now that we have a nurse, so at least, like, in fact, yesterday I went to check because my aunt, the 81-year-old aunt, had dialysis today, and she actually just got discharged on Tuesday. And in the past few days, she was having, I don't know, due to what, diarrhea, and we were like worried. Can she make her dialysis session today? And the dialysis center kept calling and saying, are you sure she can make it? So I'm like, yes, that's the aim. Cannot miss the dialysis, session, but we will get her there somehow or another. So, and then the nurse told me, did you check whether she's COVID? Because diarrhea is one of the symptoms of COVID, right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, I was there at the home, and then I said, okay, get a kid, you will do it, and thank God it was negative. So she made her session today. So I'm just like, how do we address like the seniors who are is there any, I mean, maybe Lily or who, because I'm not so familiar with like places where we could source out for financial, or is there social services in Malaysia where we could seek out this kind of help allowances for them, I mean, I know many, even like I have friends who unfortunately, they are taking care of their parents as well. And they are also of not, they're not working, or maybe they're working part-time. So they're struggling as well. They're struggling as well. So if there is any way, I mean, I know the cost, but unfortunately they are already in this predicament. So it's like, where can we source out to help them, yeah, get some aid? Maybe for fun also can.
Yeah, I think sometimes I admire the Malaysian system, because I work with the older people, and I do find that actually there is really no ideal system, isn't it? So the problem is if you have one system that is rigid, that's the worst possible system. Yeah. So and Malaysia very flexible one, anything goes. Yeah. So but what it we have this wonderful Keluarga Malaysia. I know some of them don't like this term so much nowadays, but this Keluarga Malaysia worked so well over the COVID-19 pandemic. But I guarantee you, Keluarga Malaysia was always there when it comes to providing for older people who need help. So I have people coming to clinic brought by their neighbors. I have single people going home, and this person is adopted grandson. Don't know where she find one, but just a very nice, kind soul who decided that he will adopt this older person as his grandma, and just sometimes even move in. So people seem to be able to develop solutions using their own initiative, and the people seem to do gravitate to these people who need support. So and to try and formalize this sort of structure might then limit the availability of this sort of informal help. But on the other hand, we still need some form of safety net to make sure that all these people who Keluarga Malaysia didn't quite hit are able to actually obtain help. And we do have this safety net in terms of I have to say, the ministry, the welfare department. They're there. They're few and far between. But if not too many people need them, they're there for them. And we do have. And we need to regulate to make sure that these older people are not being abused. So it's very hard, and it's probably one of the reasons why nothing really happened in the last 20 years, because there is no ideal structure. And perhaps the answer is not to have these formal structures like Singapore or Taiwan or UK, because we always look for a developed country for answers. Why don't we look to Africa? What do they do for their older people? And of course, they have no resources. They can't use those models. They have no choice. We are the ones who are poor, who are not so rich, who are trying to overspend money doing what rich people do. And society always makes this sort of mistakes. Can we not look at what our neighbors, our Southeast Asian neighbors do, what the Africans do as solutions to actually dealing with older people who do need support? So there's no one size fits all solution. Every community will have their own solution, and what we really need to do is for each community to develop their own unique solution.
Well said, Prof. Tan. So, Madam Lily, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I've been trying to, this Keluarga Malaysia, I want to kind of narrow it down into Keluarga Taman-Taman, I've been trying to do that with my Taman. So it's easier to start on a smaller scale and then make it like a model that other taman, other communities can follow, a neighborhood kind of thing, right? But it's very hard to convince the residential, the management, office, the committee, because they're scared they'll be sued for this and that. For me, for example, I've been trying to get people to buy the idea. You live in like my place, right? We have 288 units in our taman. How about the residents community get a directory done? Yeah, of all those, then we know who are those doctors and nurses. They are there because I live near hospitals, right? So emergency, nearest, go to them, they can come. Who are those who can do catering for older people, right? There's income for them as well, their neighbors, income for them, and they don't have to say delivery. It's just walking within the taman itself, right? And then simple things like, what they call it, caregiving. Be companion. There are those who can come and sit with your elderly parent for an hour, 2 hours on shifts. So there's so much you can do. Even simple things like cutting hair, doing manicure, pedicure, all this can be done within the taman itself, right? Neighbors helping neighbors. Keluarga, taman-taman, ajiran, okay? So I'm trying to get this idea, but I'll wait to the Star and they publish it. But nothing happened.
Lily, it's happening, but not as fast as you would like it to. Yeah, so we need to kind of give this sort of initiative some steroids, to boost it up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know for a fact that there are a few communities out there who are doing great work, like the Damansara Jaya residents community, for example. And I think Dr. Tan, right? That you're overseeing some community too, right? And they have got their own.
We don't oversee them. So what we did was we started a pyramid scheme called and it was named the Social Connect Group by the community in SS20. So we trained them on compassionate listening. Yeah, so or empathic listening. and then they then would go out and spread the wings and encourage other communities to do the same. Because I think the fear for everyone is to become overburdened. And of course, my mom's the youngest in the family, and you can tell that she now no longer accepts. When I was young, she used to help everybody, but she's now, we call it burnt out, because she's had to help so many people. And but if everybody contributes, then no individual feels burdened, and that is what is needed. Yeah. So, and then we don't have to think that only the first thing to think, and I think we now busted the myth that the care for older adults is the responsibility of care for older adults is that of the adult children. I hope and nobody mentioned that anymore. Yeah. So we think, and then we moved on to family, but in truth, it's everybody's responsibility. Everybody, if you can, just do it. Yeah. Don't ask, why am I having to do this? Just do it lah. And if you can't do it, you find someone who can do it. Say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't just do this time. Can you do it or not? Like what Judith says, right? Yeah. So, and then that will actually create these supportive communities that can actually help. And with modern technology, we can use apps, handphones, and local directories are very useful. And someone somewhere needs to start this sort of initiative. But it's very difficult because usually there are resource factors, human factors that makes these initiatives fizzle out. And so we also need to, that's why we were training them on empathic listening, Yeah, so that was the start of things, and then COVID got in the way, and then the funding ran out. So what we're trying to do is to scale and get communities to realize that they don't get everything, they can't have government funding for everything, and to actually get people to take the initiative. But hopefully Act for Health can do some of this as well.
Yep. Speaking of which, sorry, Miss Ong, do you have any comments?
I think Veronica has her hand out for a while already.
Oh, Miss Veronica, I think that was for the audio, Miss Judith's audio.
No.
Yeah, the problem with the Google Meet hand function is if you don't disable it, it's just up the whole time. Yeah. Okay, so we have Miss Sharifa who said that Judith, I appreciate you being an advocate for your loved one and older adults in general. Thank you. And drawing boundaries for yourself. Example, reaching out to others. Would you consider this as self-care or any other self-care tips you would like to share?
Sorry, Kitara, can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Okay, so Ms. Sharifa has shared on our chat box that she appreciates you being an advocate for your loved one and older adults in general. And she says, thank you. But drawing boundaries for yourself, for example, reaching out to others, would you consider this self-care or any other self-care tips you would like to share?
Oh, okay. Okay, the self-care tip that I would do is, as you know, I'm doing peritoneal dialysis for my dad, so it's unfortunately it's 4
Sorry,
times
Ms.
a day.
Judith,
Yeah.
we can't hear you too well. Maybe you could come closer to the mic.
Yeah, okay, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, sorry. Okay. As doing peritoneal dialysis for my dad, it's 4 times a day. Yeah. So what I do is I mean it's a routine, so I have to do it like between 4 to 6 hours on the next session. So what I do is I time myself. I have to go back into a routine and I time myself. But I make sure that the third session is done about 4 o'clock, between 4 to 6 o'clock. Then as well as give my dad dinner, yeah, and then I'll be rushing off at 6 o'clock up to the gym. So that's what I need. So I'm thankful that the gym nearby to my house, I live near a mall, and it's only like a 5-minute walk or a 10-minute walk, depending how fast I walk. It's the gym. So I need to go for my Wednesdays, my Thursdays, and sometimes on Sunday as well. So I'll go for a Zumba class maybe, just an hour, or a body combat class, whichever, or my regular body combat, or maybe a body pump class. or even a volley X, learn some volley X dancing. Maybe slow, but I need that. So I make sure that no matter what, whether it's a day where I have to go to the doctor with my dad, or help my aunt or something like that, I make sure I time it with such that by 6 o'clock the latest, or even late, or even my Zumba instructors, they know I'll be late. Maybe I'll be the two song, or my friends will say, "Oh, you're late again, two songs." They know that I'll come in at the second song. That's because of the timing. It's not that I want to be late, but sometimes it all depends on, like my dad, right? So sometimes it's like maybe he's asleep, so I don't want to wake him up so fast, or maybe okay, I'll give him dinner about just after 6, not too early, or not then he'll be hungry later, because I'll be back only like maybe 8 or 9 o'clock after my 2 classes or something. So that's what I do. I mean, that is just my distress time, and I need to have that on the days that I have classes. And after that, maybe I'll just go for a coffee, with my instructor or my friends, just a little chit chat, and then okay, I'm back. I rush back home to do the final session. That's it.
Yeah, Judith, you brought out
Yeah.
a really, really important point. I really cannot resist but to interrupt. Yeah,
Sure.
so basically, you're practicing self-care, isn't it, Judith?
Yes.
And what you have is your community that you work with being understanding and not saying, if you can't come on time, you cannot come at all. They don't say that. And what this can be applied to employers too. So we know that we have aging population, and in this current pandemic where people think a lot of people are going to be unemployed, we actually have a labor shortage. Yeah, we don't have an unemployment issue during the pandemic. We have a labor shortage, and then in fact, it's the employees market, and there's this thing called the mass resignation going on because people are just choosing a newer career. So what we need to consider if we're going to really continue to thrive as a nation is for employers to actually embrace flexible working. So they need to understand that men and women need flexibility in their working hours in order to stay in the workforce if they actually need to provide some form of care to their older relative. So it should not just apply to older relatives, it should also apply to young children as well. So in order to actually keep more and more people in the workforces, unfortunately, our employers at the moment are not all that understanding, and a lot of people have left the workforce over the pandemic because they have the responsibility of providing care for very ill or very severely disabled mainly parents, but some of them actually give up for spouses, and some give up for children as well.
Can I just add that my flexibility in doing for my dad is because I work from home, and my job is such that I take care patient operations here for my company, and we've always been working from home. So even when the pandemic hit, working from home was no different for me. But going out to the gym or going out and de-stressing myself was something that I needed to do very much. So when it was the MCO 1.0 and 2.0 or whatever have you, it was quite difficult for me to not be able to go out of the house. I mean, I could go to the garden or nearby, but not going out to have my de-stress time or my zen time or my time. You see? So yeah, that's the fortunate thing that I'm working from home, and I'm lucky to have a very understanding boss, and and the nature of our job is such that yeah, so I can still be taking care of my dad as well as doing sort of work-life balance in a way.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Judith. Okay, so I guess the key takeaway here is, we begin with financial burden, and from there we get, to summarize, it is a shared responsibility, whether you like it or not. It's everyone's responsibility to provide. And there are several resources, as Prof. Tan has mentioned just now, that can be applied if you think that it's applicable to you. And we move on to self-care, where how self-care is very important. And again, the shared understanding within community, whether you're an employer or whether you're a friend, is very, very important. So I guess these are some of the key takeaways. Anyone has any questions or anything to add on regarding this? Okay, so Ms. Sharifah has said, great point on the employer side. Another critical factor is that Judith is aware of the importance of self-care and she gives it a priority with non-negotiable like going to the gym. Well done, Ms. Judith.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would like to move on to familial responsibility. So this is, I think, within the Southeast Asian community, a huge thing because of our huge emphasis on filial piety. These days, speaking from my generation's point of view, filial piety is somewhat a debatable concept. I don't think everyone is too happy about that, especially the older, our elderly. But I guess that's what we are like. For example, there's this thing that we all share among our friends and everything about how respect is earned, not given. And then we have um, situations where we have a family member that's treating our parents very poorly, but then we are forced to respect them. And as a child, we would definitely not be happy about it because I do not like the way you're treating my parents. So from there, you can see that how filial piety is a huge thing for us, whether or not you're being treated nicely or not. So moving on to familial responsibility, it is a common notion that the elderly has the most say, especially among the Asian community. If you're older, your what you say is like gold standard at that point of time. So everyone just has to listen. So we would like to know, who do you think holds the decision-making power in the family, and why? So we would like to hear everyone's perspective on this. We begin with Madam Lily.
Well, by right, I said by right, the decision making should come from the oldest, but it's not always the case. It's only the case if you have money. So if you hold the purse strings, you have all the property, the money, everything, then no matter, even though you may have a onset of Alzheimer's, you still make the decision. They still kowtow to you, because you hold all the money, right? That is, in the Chinese family at least, that's so important. Yeah. But once you don't have that, you don't have any power at all. Your adult children makes the decision for you in everything, like which aged care home to send you to and so forth. Your decision, what you say, doesn't matter anymore. You don't have power anymore, right? Even buying something for your house, they decide, right? Because they are paying for it. Let's say what they want to give you a new fridge, or they want to, they decide. Yeah, not so much if you know what I mean, right? If you don't have the education, uneducated parents, parents with no wealth to speak of, you don't really have any power in decision making. Sad to say, but that is the picture nowadays with the new generation and the new definition of filial piety. But I think maybe because they feel that they are making the best decision for you. The children think that they are making the best decision for you.
Prof. Tan, what do you think?
Again, it's a very difficult question to have a just one answer, isn't it? Because we all like to preserve culture, and there's something really nice about this filial piety culture. You know what? During weddings, you have the senior sitting there, and you give them present them with a cup of tea, and then they give you ang pao. So those are really nice things about the culture, and it's there for a reason. Because at the end of the day, when there's a lot of family around, someone needs to hold the power to make decisions. But then sometimes there are decisions that this very senior person are really not equipped to make, Yeah, I'm sure you all know what I mean, right? Because they might not know anything about what television to buy, for instance. Then they choose the silliest television if they were making an uninformed decision, right? So perhaps in some sort of situations like what day to have a wedding or what to eat for lunch, those sort of things, they might call the last, they might hold the final decision if there's a disagreement. But sometimes the decision should be maybe deferred to a more someone who is more capable of making a decision, so they can nominate someone who is more able to make a better decision. And then the other thing is that there are certain decisions that filial piety should not include. Like, you know, what school should the grandson go to? Maybe shouldn't be the filial piety thing. Because actually, we have a lot of conflicts in family. So yeah, and nowadays, instead of having multiple grandchildren, what they have is probably one grandson between two families, right? And then they all have different ideas which school the grandson goes to. But who should be making a decision? Who should be making a decision, especially universities, that the grandson is going to? The grandson, because it concerns themselves. Yeah, so you cannot say that just because they're the most senior, they make decisions about everything. So and then the reverse is true. We misconstrue filial piety. So it is construed as because they're most senior, we should do everything for them. And that is dangerous because everything means no need to feed themselves, no need to go to the market. Sometimes no need even to go to the toilet, you know, and it becomes very disabling. So it's been actually twisted to the fact that it becomes a disabling culture. And for some people, they wouldn't like anybody to do all these things for themselves. For some people, actually quite like it. So we need some sort of balance. And there's no misinterpretation or overly zealous in application of the concept of filial piety, and also there needs to be some sort of sense and balance in terms of individual autonomy also should prevail at times. Like yeah.
Ms. Judith, do you have anything to add?
So much, but like we say, for with regards to like decision making, like just before doing peritoneal. In fact, actually, know that my dad would eventually be doing dialysis. So it was like we did, update him, and then we see the doctor, talking to the doctor, and then choosing which dialysis for, in fact, whether you're doing the peritoneal or you want to do the hemodialysis. But one of the things why we chose peritoneal is because my brother-in-law in America, he's also on peritoneal, but he's on the machine. Yeah. So and then looking that my dad is also diabetic, and his skin was really very thin, so we chose peritoneal. So when the decision came, I mean, we laid it out for my dad in the sense that we of course would like him to go this part, but of course at the end of the day, it's him who's the patient, it's him who's the person that can still make a decision. He's not, even though he's onset dementia, but he still can make decisions. So we just explained to him, the doctor explains to him, we explained to him again one more time. And then, like, in fact, when we just on a normal checkup, and his urea and everything was quite high. So the doctor told me, we cannot wait anymore. We have to schedule, to do the catheter for him. And then, so I had to, take myself just a breather, because I was like panicking and messaging my sister to the chat group, and just saying that, okay, doctor has said this. And so I explained to my dad, and the doctor in charge got a consulting doctor to come back in and to explain to my dad. We waited for a while, and then at the end of the day, my dad made the decision. So he is still responsible, giving him that, let's say, like, the power or the authority to still make the decision, even though we could have just said, okay, Dad, we know what's best for you, and you do this, and that's it, you'll sort this out. But we still gave him that decision. So the period, I think that I'm not sure whether it falls there, but yeah, giving him still that respect for his own health as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Judith, for sharing. So, Madam Lily, we would like to ask, from the older person's perspective, what are some of your expectations that you may have towards your child, their spouse, or your grandchild?
Oh, I believe very strongly in clear-cut roles. I mean, generally speaking, right? So I will not interfere with any decisions that my daughter makes for her children. I will not interfere. And there's always a danger of grandparents nagging, butting in without being asked, So I think I would tell all my friends, don't do that. Yeah, let them, especially husband and wife kind of thing, don't jampo lah. Parents and children, right? Don't go and jampo unless they come to you for advice. Then you can say your big, right? So like earlier somebody said about choosing universities and what to study. My grandson is 21 years old. Yeah, so he chose his own university and what he wanted to study. I've got nothing to do with it. I don't say anything. Whether I approve or don't approve, I don't say anything. I keep quiet. We learn. We must learn when to step in, when to cut out.
Yeah, agree. It will be much better for the entire family unit as well. I guess. Okay. So, Prof. Tan, we would like to ask, what are some of, what are the typical roles of the elderly within an Asian household?
It's very, very varied, isn't it? Yeah, because really the aptitude of each older individual is different. Yeah. And what we are seeing which is very dangerous, is that people take away all their roles. And and we see this a lot in dementia, in memory clinic. So eventually when they end up in memory clinic, you're like, you mean you didn't realize something was wrong? So by the time they come, they can barely, they can't recognize anybody. They can they can't do anything for themselves, because what actually seems to happen is the son gets married, then the cooking and the housework goes to the daughter-in-law, and then when the mother-in-law used to be able to look after the grandchildren, and then the grandchildren go to school, and then she has nothing to do. And then eventually when she cooks, she leaves the gas on, so never mind, I cook for you. And then she stops being able to manage money, never mind, I do for you. So by the time they realize something was wrong, it's really very, very late on. So the important thing is that the role of the older person should actually be decided on the aptitude, what they're best at. So if they're very good at cooking, of course they can cook, but there are some older people who cannot cook, so you don't make them cook. And some older people are good with kids, some are not. So it's really, what they're good at doing, considering the balance of the household, and their skills need to be maximized and cherished, and there should be no imposition, neither should there be a need for people to take over. So we're seeing that a lot of people won't let their parents go out to work. Have you heard of that, right, Lily? Because it's shameful on them. It's shameful that their peers say that how can you make your parents work? You should look after your parents. And it's such societal pressures that it actually goes down to violence. And sometimes the children say, my son won't let me work because he says that it really damages his status in society. So that's very sad.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Tan. So, Miss Judith, we would like to ask, moving from what Prof. Tan mentioned just now, what are some of the basic needs of an elderly, and how is that responsibility shared?
Like now that my dad needs
Miss Judith, we can't hear you
Oh,
too well.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Now that my dad needs assistance for some things that he really is able to do, he has always been very independent because he was an estate planter for the longest time. And, being in the estates, you have to do everything on your own. And so we lived with my mom, here, and he would travel all the different estates. So he's been independent all his life. So even in fact now that it comes a time where he needs assistance, he's still independent, like going to the toilet and all that. He's still able to do it. So I just take a back end and just follow and just keep an eye, in case, But it's sometimes sad to see that he really needs assistance, even like wearing a shirt sometimes in like the evening, where he suddenly maybe the memory gets a bit vague or blurry. So he'll be like, giving the shirt and then he'll be like sitting there and I'm like, yeah, wear the shirt, so you have to prompt him. So yeah, so basically I think hygiene. I'm quite particular about hygiene, though sometimes it's very difficult to get him to take a bath. And I have discussed with friends who have elderly parents as well, whether this is a norm or is it just me being over, wanting him to be clean and cleanliness. But it's also a norm with other parents who, like, even though they don't have dementia, right, it's just that don't want to actually uh, they don't want to actually take a shower, you know. So so for me, one is like basic hygiene to make sure, yeah. And then number two is the safety. So watching, him if he's not stable walking at times. So make sure someone's always around following. I mean, I follow him to make sure when because he still goes up the stairs, his bedroom, yeah. And also like the food. So because he's being a CKD patient, a dialysis patient, so I need to watch on the food. When he became a dialysis patient, we actually contacted the hospital. We go to Slayang Hospital. We contacted the Slayang Hospital's nutritionist, yeah, to know what kind of food that is able to is best for him for his diet. I mean, though sometimes we can give him a treat here and there, but yeah, I try to maintain the food that is good for him. Yeah, and is there yeah, so hygiene, yeah, safety for him. Sorry, the most important, I guess, is mental well-being. It's not easy. I mean, I have had times where, discussions or arguments, because just to get him to take a shower or just to take his medication or sit down here, you need to, I need to do a session. But sometimes even in between sessions, he may forget. Yeah, just a little like, what do I need to do? Why do I need to sit in the room? I said, you need to do the session. So, um, uh, trying to lift up his spirit. Yeah, so it's like get him to watch either if he doesn't want to come down, then get him to watch YouTube. If there's some old music, 60s, 70s music. Like recently I found the whole series of the old show called High Chaparral, where I remember my dad and mom used to watch, or finding on YouTube or Netflix or giving him some movies to see while his session is going on or even while he's having dinner. Yeah. So trying as best, but sometimes it's not difficult to speak to him when you're busy, when I have my work or getting, getting his lunch or his dinner, things like that, meals. Sometimes I feel a little bit I feel neglecting him in that sense that just leaving him in his room or watching a video. I mean, it's just like sometimes you say put the TV on and then that babysits your kids, right? So in a way, I'm like, yeah, that babysitting my dad, the YouTube or you know. So yeah, so but I try as best lah. I mean, sometimes like say, hey, dad, you want to go out, or like he doesn't, then try to be flexible, a bit more flexible in how I um, um, deal with it. Because initially, when I came back after learning how to do the peritoneal dialysis, I really was stressed out because I thought, I need to be very rigid. The timing, the hospital taught me at this time, the 4 times, and you get it done, and then everything. And I used to be like so rigid. My dad didn't want to get up. He didn't want to, you know, get up to just sit in the chair to do the session. I would freak out. I'm like, Dad, you need to do this time. You need to do. You don't get up at this time. To me, it's like throw everything off. Then after through the time and going to see the doctor, follow up, right? I would ask them, he couldn't get up. So, then they say, no, don't worry, you just do. And then they tell me. So learning more about it and how to do it. So now I don't stress myself out. If he's up, he's up and I do it in stride and check his BP. As long as the BP is not too low, I'm able to do the session. Then I'll start from there, and then I count from there the timing. And yeah, it may be a late sometimes because if you started the first session late, then the last session is past 10 o'clock or past 11. But I'll do it in my stride and yeah, not overburden him or overburden me in being so stressed out and because he doesn't really know it all the time. Yeah, he may not know what I'm doing, or sometimes he says, if you want to do the session, you do your session. And I'm like, no, it's not my session, it's for you. So I have to explain, Dad, you have a tube, you're a dialysis patient. Yeah, this is what I do. I show you the book. We've been doing this for the past 3 months or so, Yeah, so that's it. about it. Thank you.
You've been doing great job, Ms. Judith. It's just,
Thank you so much.
yeah, it's
my
just hearing you, we can feel it, but
Try
really
my
well
best.
done. Okay, so in the interest of time, let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about mental health. So very quickly on mental health, we are all aware of the stigma that's held among many within our community towards mental health, especially seeking mental health assistance. So we would like to know how, do you actually think there is a stigma towards mental health among the elderly? And how, if yes, how do we overcome this stigma and what are some of the resources available? So I'm throwing this question out to everyone. So maybe Madam Lily, would you like to share?
Okay. I think there is a huge stigma still regarding mental health, more so in the elderly. People make a joke out of it, like, oh, the nyanyuk, stay away, or make fun of them and so forth. I think that is really very degrading, in a sense. I think a lot of it comes from ignorance. So if we can just raise awareness that, mental health, people with mental health issues, right, should be supported and should be like cared for rather than ridiculed and avoided. So that's my, general take on it. Awareness. Yes. I think because there's been quite a bit done in our country regarding this mental health thing, webinars and reports done and research done. It's not so. I mean, it's getting better, in the sense that people now understand what it's all about, and it can happen to anyone. Yes.
Just would like to share that we recently analyzed our data from Ageless, and we found that pre-COVID and during COVID, our older adults actually, the mental health has actually improved. In fact, they don't have much mental health problem compared to our younger people. So just thought that we'd share this very unique information, something that I didn't really expect.
Yeah, we have this thing called a demographic dividend at the moment, which is disappearing. So that'll explain why the quality of our life, if of our older adults at the moment, is not too bad. But post pandemic, I think things are going to change very drastically, because during the pandemic it wasn't an issue. Children were working from home. Got neighbors. If they knew that this auntie's children is overseas, they will actually watch out for them, communities and friends also. But when people are all going back to work and we see what the state of the economy after the pandemic, things might change very quickly. So we need to really keep measuring. But what we do have is that potential under-reporting as well, because they're not going to admit to those symptoms, isn't it? The questionnaires. I'm sure Lily's filled in lots of questionnaires, and she smiles to herself because she knows that friends are going to say no, even though they actually are struggling. Yeah. So so that's probably might be an underestimate of the level of mental health, because people in that generation potentially are less self-aware of their own personal feelings and are unable to actually express them, because they were, children were always seen and not heard potentially in that generation, and therefore, they have never been able to actually given the opportunity to express themselves when they're young, and then by the time you reach a certain age, that ability of expression, very difficult to develop already. Certain things like language, certain things like expressiveness has to be inculcated from the minute you are born. But we can't go back and turn around the clock and change everything. But we do know that potentially the mental health issue is not so big. But but what we think is that most of the time we can actually overcome the community mental health issue by encourage the older person to actually participate, social participation, because even though they might not recognize that they're anxious or depressed, if they are able to talk to people, the anxiety and depression level will go down anyway. So mutually supportive groups where they can share feelings, share experiences. Because I know that when I go and visit older relatives, they will tell me, download, download family problems, download, and then they feel so much better. And then they'll say, when are you coming again? I was like, when am I going to come again? Yeah, because you feel that this downloading is very, very important for them. Yeah, so yeah, with our solutions without having to measure even though we can't measure the problem accurately anyway. But asking them to see a counselor currently is a big struggle, I have to say. So we have to like surreptitiously put counselors in these mutually socially support groups. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sure
so,
Lily acted as a counselor to a lot of her friends, right?
Yes.
Informal one.
The reasons for the the depression is quite different from the younger ones. Because there's also this aspect of thinking about death, you know. They're in their twilight years. So it can be quite depressing to sit there, you know, especially you can't go out much. People keep telling you the vulnerable group, you're the vulnerable group, don't go out and all that. And you sit at home, especially if you live alone, then you keep thinking, will I get Alzheimer's? One day will I get cancer? Well, all kinds of things will come into your mind. And you really get depressed thinking about all those negative things. That's why it's so important. Social engagement, social connections, so very important.
agree, very true. I mean, although they may not necessarily realize, I guess the key takeaway here is even they don't want to admit or they don't realize that they are facing some sort of mental health issue. I guess the key here is getting them to, whether or not they have it, go out there, you know, social engagement, try to keep yourself happy, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Can I just add, Kitara, just a short,
Sure.
yeah, I thought, Kitara. Yeah, talking about engagement is very important. Like before COVID, right? My dad is the kind where he would just go to the neighborhood mama, yeah, for his morning tea tarik and his chapati or his thosai. That's every day, every day. Sometimes we would say like, Dad, can you change to Chijong Pan or something? You know, we'll go and get it for you. But every day he was there. But actually, when I followed him, my sister and I, or we followed him, then we realized actually that was his time for his engagement, even with the mama guy, or even with the security guards that were along the way in the condos nearby, you know, on his way to the shop. Because he would, when we walk with him, he would, you know, like, you know, wave his hand, you know, it's like, and then he acknowledges them and they acknowledge him, you know, it's like, oh, you want your sandpaper, you know, those that they used to give out the free sandpaper. So when he goes into the mama, he would talk to them, you know, I'm okay, and then how are you? And then, you know, they'll be interacting. So at the time when COVID happened, oh, it was difficult. And we had to explain to him that, Dad, you can't go. The shops are closed. You can't go, you cannot go out, you know, or you have to wear a mask, you know. And then one day, this was MCO 1.0, I think. We even had to bring him when it was like, we took him to the shop and showed him that the shop was closed. This was MCO 1.0. So it caused him to be a little bit more, you know, it got him into a bit more quiet. And then we realized that, hey, you know, he's losing that interaction that he has daily, even with the neighbors that he sees along his walk, just for that, just the trip down to the mama and then come back. Yeah. So engagement, you know, that all plays on his mental health as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess family members, you should just like observe the seniors, not even seniors, I think even in my age group, I mean, mental health, if you really need you need to reach out to someone, or, you know, even if it's just, if you can just WhatsApp someone and say, hey, you know, are you free to talk, you know, talk it out. That's what I do. And I mean, some of my friends also, you know, we have like this where we just chat it out, or sometimes I need help, you know, I'll just like, hey, are you free to talk, you know, I'm not such a good day, you know, we taking care of my dad and maybe work and all that. So just reach out. And I mean, I think mental health these days, but it's no more, how you say, such a thing that you say you have mental health or you're feeling depressed. It's no more such a thing where it's like looked down upon. It's like, yeah, because with COVID happening and also with you know, work and whatever life throws at you now, I mean, it's good to talk it out. So if you're depressed, yeah, everybody gets depressed. It's not like only one kind of person gets depressed. You know, everybody has been depressed one time or another. But it's just how we look at it and how we try to get out of it. That's the question to ask each other. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Ms. Judith. So I guess I think another important thing to highlight is the fact that mental health is actually spoken quite a lot within our community, not just among the elderly and things like the community as a whole. We speak a lot about mental health. So I guess that has sort of, not to say that our older adults are not aware, but for those who may not think it's an actual problem, I guess they now know, or they're probably educated enough to know that it is an actual problem. Okay, so we are running out of time, but just one more segment that we're supposed to cover, which is end of life care. So I'm just going to throw this one major question that I believe a lot of us find very difficult to approach, which is what are some of the important questions that we need to speak to the elderly about with regards to end of life care? So Madam Lily, what do you think are some of the important questions that should be spoken of?
I'm actually quite happy that it's no longer a huge social stigma to talk about death and dying. When I was doing my master's in applied gerontology, I took an electives called End of Life, Death and Dying. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of the issues connected with that. And recently we had a family gathering, relatives, extended relatives, where there were about 10 to 12 of us. And my uncle was actually there, he's 80 something. And he was there listening to all our discussion regarding what to provide for him, how to take care of him, because he's alone in the house. So he becomes part of the family discussion rather than we talk without him there. So he can hear everything and he can contribute. He can share with us his feelings, his views about, where to go later on and how, for me personally, I'm very honest. I've told my daughters where I want to end up in retirement if I have to go somewhere. And I've also kind of prepared how I want my last few days to be. And I have even tried, because I think in the year 2018 or something, Xiao En, I think the name is Xiao En, they had a death festival, the first ever in the country, a 2-day death festival. And of course, knowing me, I will be there. I'll go there and learn everything about it. And there was even one called experiential, right, where you actually can get into the coffin, right? You will lie there with your hands across, right? And you listen to the music and everything, and you just get the feel of what it is like to be in a coffin. Of course, you're not really dead, but at least the feeling is there, right? You can get an idea of what it is like. And then also, I mean, it's good to have a living will. Have a living will, so you tell your children and all how you want to go, what music you want to play. I'm okay with all these things. I've even taken my last portrait, just in case, right? So I don't want anybody to go and choose something that I don't like, of me, and then display it in a funeral parlor. I want to have a say in my portrait, the music that is played there. And I don't want it to be gloomy, sad music. I want everything all done nice because it's a send off that's a happy one. So these things are slowly changing. And just yesterday, I read and I visited a website that allows you to make your own ceramic urn, right? So it becomes personalized, beautiful urn instead of the standard type that they get. So this is also personalized, and we all have a big say in it because it is our funeral, our death. We want to say how we go. So that's my feeling about it.
Sounds very fun, Miss Lily.
It should be like in a way. Right?
I don't disagree with Lily, and to be honest, my entire career, I've never had a problem discussing death with my patients. I somehow feel that it's a doctor thing, it's the doctors who cannot talk about it. Yeah, so we laugh about it. And to be honest, get your will done. That's number one, priority. Then the next thing you need to do is to come up with an advanced directive, what you want to do in certain situations. Because I know that if I end up in a road traffic accident and I become brain dead, I definitely want all my organs donated, and I don't want to be kept alive. That's just the way it is. Yeah. So then they're very, very clear so that the family knows what to do in certain situations, and they do not end up fighting, because that's what you don't want, fight, feud. Yeah. And the doctor sometimes don't know what to do. Then they have to provide the treatment until it's clear what to do, and then you end up having your suffering prolonged and things like that. But the other thing that you could consider doing is buying your funeral package, because the earlier you buy it, the cheaper it is. So you buy it now, and then the funeral parlor will invest your money, and then you get so that, and then in future time you'll be you would have spent less money than you needed on the funeral package, because the most expensive time to buy a funeral package is after death. Yep. So buy it earlier. And funeral parlors also. And then you get to choose what you want, right, Lily? Yeah. But I do this with my relatives. Yeah, I've done it with my uncle when we knew he had cancer. Sat down with him and talk about dying. Have you chosen your photo or not? Do we need to go and take or not? I said, no, 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 no. Now I'm so ugly, so skinny. Like I prefer this one. Yeah. So and then they choose one that he was young and really handsome looking. I was like, okay, whatever. And then he chose his obituary, what he wanted written. And then the hymns we sang in his funeral. So yeah, all this can be done. This does not have to be sad. Yeah, but the problem is some people, for certain individuals, death is taboo. But remember that it's not going to not happen just because you don't say it. Don't think about it or don't mention it. And definitely mentioning isn't going to actually make it happen faster. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of superstition around that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. Ms. Judith, anything you would like to add?
Not really discussed it with my dad yet. It's totally I know we should be doing it, yeah, but have not. I'll get to it soon because it's totally different. It's just like how Libby and even the Fran has mentioned, about like preparing. When it was my mom, and then my mom passed away in 2004. She had her poem chosen, for her booklet, for her memorable booklet. She said, you cremate me, and then you put the urn in the garden, under the starfruit tree, And then we were like, what? Yeah. And then if you don't do that, I'll come and haunt you. If you don't do right, I'll come and haunt you. Then we were like, oh, mom, don't do that. Terrible. So she prepared. She sort of like accepted, when the time she was ill and everything. So it's different with my dad. So it's something that needs to be discussed. I mean, we have talked among my sisters about possible things about it. But yeah, probably I need to get to it soon just to slowly ease the conversation into one of the sessions.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Judith. So I guess the key takeaway here is involve the elderly in the discussion. And ultimately, it's your own personal responsibility to decide how you would like your death to be. I mean, considering the expected and unexpected circumstances. Okay, so we've actually approached the end. It's been 2 hours, which is amazing. We've had like so many wonderful insights and really great discussion on very taboo topics. Not to say taboo per se, but things that are very difficult to discuss on a daily basis. So we thank you so much, Ms. Judith, Prof. Tan, Madam Lily, for contributing. So now we open the floor for questions. We can do about a 5 minutes Q&A before everyone leaves for tea. So I think we have a question from Dr. Mel. Dr. Mel, would you like to let us know what your question is?
Hi. Yes. No, actually, I have one comment, no, 2 comments, 1 suggestion, and 1 question. Shout out to Madam, by the way. You look exactly the same from
Dr. Mel was my former
1998.
student.
And that's my sister.
Both of you.
Hi, Madam.
So nice.
Sorry,
to
okay.
see you.
She's looking very, very well. She looks exactly the same as she did in school. Yeah. The first comment, right, is no, the first comment is, well, the good news is because you were mentioning that the next generation, what are they going to do about, getting old and all that. I think with climate change apathy, you don't need to worry about getting old, okay? We'll probably like self-exterminate before you even reach that age. So that's one consolation. The other one was maybe Dr. Tan can explain the difference between DNR and NAR. Because DNR is do not resusc.
Yes.
NAR is just no active. So like for myself as a doctor, I'm very clear because I used to work in ICU and OD, so I'm very clear with my choice is DNR, not NAR. So like maybe can explain to the viewers the difference.
Yeah, actually, we don't use either term now. It's more of a common parlance because that was how it started. Yeah, but nowadays there's so many forms of resuscitation, because when it first started, it meant just CPR, you see. So but then so now we actually call it do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation in the event of a cardiac arrest. Yeah. So I know. So we have
GMPR.
yeah. We write it out. We do not use abbreviations. It's not something you can abbreviate. Because what if DNR means something else, right? Yeah. So so we write it. We actually have forms so that it's not written, so there'll be no mistakes. Yeah. So so the
like the concept lah.
Yeah, resuscitation is no longer the word to use, because resuscitation can apply to so many things, So it can mean giving a pint of fluid. It can mean treating with antibiotics. It can mean giving some respiratory support. It can mean putting a tube in to actually breathe for them. So so we actually we actually write the full sentence out. If there was no form, but if there was a form, we would fill in the form.
And then the other thing was my mom said this before. The important question that you need to ask elderly people is, what right do you want when you die? Because people have no idea what you want. So that's an important thing. Oh, and we've already bought our plot in Xiao En. So, madam, if you're there, we will be neighbors. And then I have a suggestion. Like with regards to caregivers, right? You could actually try asking, because now I work in a refugee clinic. So there are a lot of refugees all over that you don't realize are there. Maybe some people don't realize. And some of them might even be able to care for your elderly, whoever, or yourself very well. You just have to open your eyes, see them, and just ask. And then just get them to learn how to do it. And I've actually got 1 or 2 patients who are looking after like elderly people in their area because somebody knew and then asked them to help. So you could think of that as an option now, because not everyone can afford a nurse. So you could try that as well. The refugees around your taman or nearby. And then the question.
That's a very good point, but I have to interject, because to me, caregivers need training. You should, it's not just about getting someone that's cheap and affordable. So what we really need is affordable training caregivers, so that they can actually afford. So we can actually afford the caregivers, and it's a career structure. So for the refugees, they actually deserve as much as we do. There shouldn't be like, just because you're a refugee, you get paid less. So so we actually need we need to reintroduce. We need to introduce. Heart Piosis paying refugee is currently illegal, and I actually do not agree with that law, isn't it? It needs to be changed, but that's another story for another day. But what would potentially, I didn't say I pay refugees, potentially we could be doing, because they actually are very able-bodied. Why should they depend on handouts, right? Is to actually allowing them to develop a career in caregiving, but they need training.
And in fact, if what you need, a good caregiver just needs to have a compassionate heart, really. The training part is probably, you can work it out, but the having the compassionate heart to actually take care of somebody
to start with,
that one really that's the more important thing. And then whether you want to pay them, whether it's legal or not, that one is really between you and the person. Unless you are going to run an agency employing refugees to do caregiving for people, that one you're going to run into legal issues. But otherwise, just as a family employing somebody, there are so many ways. You can just say, it's just a friend and I'm giving a stipend. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, and then one question, the last question. Dr. Tan, is there any correlation between, or have you seen anyone mention like constipation and memory loss? Because one of my patients told me yesterday, actually, she said her mom was having dementia, and her so she's got 2 daughters, and the one that messaged me is my patient, but her sister is actually NS in HKL. And so she was saying my mom has been having signs of dementia already. Then they started giving probiotics because she also had constipation. So when they gave a lot of probiotics, she started pooing very well, and her memory loss has improved. And so I was just wondering, like, is there any correlation between constipation and that, or was it the probiotics? Like, is
So
there
the
any, have you
but,
noticed anything? Yeah.
it's not dementia per se, but constipation can be linked to quite a number of illnesses. So hypocalcemia, nutritional issues, lack of mobility. So you and also and some sinister causes as well, cancer and things like that. So the underlying cause of constipation can lead to issues with mental confusion. And to be honest, that's very important to know because this mental confusion is potentially reversible. So this is what we call reversible causes of memory loss, potentially. So constipation in older people should never be considered lightly. And if the symptoms are new and they persist persist for more than 2 weeks, really you should actually seek medical attention.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mel. We have a comment from Heart Pure. Caregiver job is tough and accountable, but yet with low pay and low respect. That's really unfortunate. Yeah, and Prof. Tan agrees. Okay, so we will be taking further questions via email, or you can, we do have this WhatsApp group. We have our little community of our own Act for Health community, where we have this WhatsApp group on called Act for Health Seniors. So if you check your email, you will see that we have already included the link underneath. So just feel free to join us, and we have lots and lots of events that will be that discusses these issues in depth. But if you have any specific questions for Madam Lily, Prof. Tan, or Ms. Judith, please feel free to email us and we will direct those questions to them and we'll give you your own personal response. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us for 2 hours on a Saturday. And I hope that this is something that has been very beneficial for you. I hope you'll be able to have these discussions back at home. And especially my favorite part of today is how we spoke about end of life in such a fun way. It's such a fun way to speak about. I think that's the highlight of this whole thing, actually. So we thank you so much, Prof. Tan, Ms. Judith, and Madam Lily for joining us. We will get back to you if there's any other questions. And thank you so much, audience, for being with us here for 2 hours. We really appreciate it. The link, the recording link, will be sent to you via email. So feel free to go through it again. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And